Awesome. The music always gets me hyped. So, hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of React Wednesdays. My name is TJ Van Tol. I work as a developer advocate at Blues Wireless. And today I have a special co-host, Dan Skaggs. Dan, welcome.
The other Dan.
Exactly. We only allow Dans to co-host. We had to find another one. Now, thanks for coming on. For people that don't know you, you are a previous guest of the show, but why don't you introduce yourself, tell them who you are, what you do, that sort of stuff.
I am, and thanks for having me back. It's always nice to chat with people that are smarter than I am and doing cool things. So I am an engineering manager type person these days. So I've got the pointy-haired boss title above my desk. I don't write so much code anymore, but I'm more focused on developer productivity and systems and architectures and things. I like to stay connected with the developer community, and so this is one way that I always enjoy getting to talk to people, like I said, that are doing really cool things.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit for today's show because we are talking a little bit more like infrastructure-y type stuff today with CI/CD, so it should be pretty.
I also really like to automate things, so I'm really excited about the conversation today.
Well, cool. And just real quick, for those of you that are new, this is React Wednesdays. This is a weekly show that we do here on Twitch and on YouTube as well. I'm going to drop a link to the show in the comments, so you'll see that on either YouTube or Twitch. So if you want to learn about upcoming episodes, add things to your calendar, that's all there that you can do it. If you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, that's going to be down in the description as well, so you can check that out. But without further ado, we are going to be talking about CI and CD today for React web apps. And to do that, I'm going to welcome on our two guests for today. We've got Zain and Furqan, which hopefully I got the pronunciation of that correct. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, good. How are you?
How about you?
Why don't you guys start by telling us, who you are, what you do, what your background is with this sort of stuff to get us started.
Okay, so I'm Zain Sajjad, and I've been working as a front-end engineer and a lead of front-end development for past around 5 years now. And we have developed products, number of large-scale products that are being used by millions of users and are developed by tens of developers across different teams. So being a front-end guy from the very start of my career, and that's it.
Cool. Furqan?
Hello. Yeah, I am Furqan Ali, and I have been working in Fetch Sky Technologies for around 3 to 4 years, and I am working in a front end and working on React ecosystem for more than 2 years. So it's amazing to work here, and we have been developed large applications, scalable applications, and we have a more than around 10 members in a team who have been working with us. So it's nice working.
Cool stuff. So we're talking CI/CD today. Zain, I think you're gonna kick us off. Maybe you could start with just like, give the beginner friendly, like, what are we talking about here today? What's the overall problem that we're trying to solve?
Yeah. So we have come a long way in the front ends. I mean, there was a time when front end was just about writing bit of HTML, CSS. We used jQuery. We used to manipulate DOM, and front end wasn't something that people used to admire. I mean, it was just a small thing for people. But for past 5 or 6 years, since a number of big tech companies have invested a lot in this arena, front-end in itself has become a complete field now. So you have experts who are doing just front-end. So we have moved from that part to, I feel this is a lot more of a revolution, or it's a big change in the industry, that front-end in itself has grown as a field, a separate field. So with this passage, the reason for front-end becoming this much large or huge field is the reason that users demand better experiences today. We have number of devices that users have. We have applications and the use cases that are more sophisticated than ever before. So in order to accumulate all these sophisticated feature requests, all this, large-scale applications, you have to have that solid front-end in place. Beside that, when you have these large-scale applications in place, number of different problems and as well as solution arises. There was a time when you needed all those in different environments for your backend applications to work. You never thought of that. You need these sort of environments for front end. But today, if you are working with even for small web apps, you need number of different environments. You have your develop environment separate. You have your production environment and all the fancy stuff around that. So I think this has given a rise to a field. I don't know if this term is much more into the market or not, but there is something now that's called front-end ops. We have that DevOps, and then we have this front-end ops that's almost related to, this is similar sort of drive sort of thing from the back-end development. So you have number of environments where you deploy your front-end, and you have a number of different configurations. Moving on, we are moving towards the era of micro front-ends, and I feel that this field, front-end ops and the CI/CD, isn't going to stop here. So if you are new to front-end world, or even if you are experienced in the front-end world, this field moves very fast. And moving fast in this field is never easy. And we are heading towards an era where we will have a big booming front-end thing waiting for us with micro front-ends, all this fancy stuff. So CI/CD, I think, is something that front-end needed for a long time, and now it is becoming more of a streamline with the number of big giant companies diving into it.
Yeah, it's funny. When I first started with web development, my CI/CD was me FTPing files from my machine to a server, and it's like, what do you need, right? If I need to update in production, well, then I just FTP the new version. What more do you need?
Yep.
Most of us, I mean, the people who are in this field for past 5-6 years, we have started the same way. Copying those PHP files from one tab to another. That was everything to us.
So I guess what is the next step? So when people are looking to start, like, where do you start? What sort of processes are we talking about?
Okay, so we have this two things in place. One part is enabling that continuous integration in your application, right? So I would like Furqan to jump into it and just discuss a little of what CI/CD is and why you need it in first place.
Okay, first of all, I would like to tell you the problems that associated that was before when we are not using CI/CD. So for that, so that those who are not using CI/CD in their application operation, so that they can leverage it in your application development. Before understanding CI/CD, we need to first understand the challenges from development to production. You know that application development is no longer the handiwork of a handful of developers. As applications get more and more complex, developers and other teams need to work together to drive value. However, the large number of members working together on the project, the higher the integration health. And for that to understand, I think we need to understand the problem associated with it. For that, you need to think of an organization that have big and infrequent deployments. And for example, you have 1 month, for you have a month, after a month you deploy, you have a deploy day. So for that, it means you have a lot of members in your team who are developing the features, and on the deployment day they are pushing all the features at the same time, and it can cause a problem, and we don't know which feature can causes that problem, and that's a really big problem. And in that in organization, you probably following manual deployments which are error prone because you are doing manually and you may forget some steps between that. And in under pressure environment, maybe production goes down for that, and you need to deploy a hot fix for that. And how can you make sure that the deployment that you are doing right now will not cause any other problem in the in this? And then you have long living branches, because you are working on a feature that is taking more than a month, and your main branch, which is your production branch, which is far ahead of your branch, and when you deploy your branch, it can cause merge hell, and you
Yeah,
can
I
lose
can
your
imagine
code.
that.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody
Yeah,
smiled
yeah,
like sort of awkwardly when you
yeah.
said that. Yeah.
yeah.
You may lose
Painful
your
smile.
application functionality, and there might be code conflicts in and increasing in testing efforts because of that, because you are deploying, you are working for a month on a features, and then you have to test it first. How can you make sure that you are tested it properly through manual testing or whatever you have done through it? So that can cause frustrated developers and project managers as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a
yeah,
big productivity thing. Like at Blues, we're still a small company, so our CI/CD isn't like what you might want in an ideal situation. So we occasionally run into stuff where it's like, oh, we need to update that site, but oh, there's only one person who just like manually goes in and
yeah,
pushes a button, and if they're out on vacation, it's like, oh
Mhm.
crap, like we can't actually deploy this website. So it's productivity, but it's also like peace of mind type things like
Yeah.
that you have these systems in place so you can focus on the things you want to be focusing on and not like silly things like this.
yeah.
Well, and
You can
you
save
brought
your
up a good
time.
point. Oh, sorry. I want
You
to
can, yeah.
point out something that you mentioned that maybe kind of got overlooked there too. Um, the repeatability of this, like let the machines do it, and let the machines focus on what they're good at, which is doing the same things the same way every time, where we humans are not. And that's huge from my perspective, for the comfort level of being able to deploy. Right, it's going to be done exactly the same, and all the same steps are going to happen every time. The machine doesn't feel pressure, right? So it
Yeah,
says I got to do X, Y, and Z. Whereas we humans go, I got to do X and O and Z, and I forget Y. So that was a good point that kind of got, I think, maybe um, not as much attention as we should give it, because that's a big deal.
yeah. You get a confidence because you have developed you have automated your process. So you have a confidence that when if you push some code, so it is not your job to test it manually. You can do another work in the meantime.
Mhm.
So so here comes the CI/CD in action. So, but first we need to understand what is CI. So CI is basically a continuous integration. It is a practice to frequently deploy your changes into the shared branch, shared repository, which can be a Git or any other version control system. So and it makes sure that your code being has been tested unit test to end testing. So you don't need to worry about that. If there is an error, it will it will notify you, and you can fix that. And once you fix that, you can merge those changes to the other branch, which after the CI uh, phase, there comes the continuous delivery phase, where you deploy your change. Once you get the confidence on your branch, your feature that you have developed, then you deploy it in uh, testing environment, where your code being tested by QA or whatever, uh, maybe user, you're testing it and you get the feedback on it. And once you get the confidence that it is ready to go in production, then this this phase is called continuous deployment. So it is not a one-time process. It is happening continuously, so that whenever you develop a feature, it is going through all these phases into the production. So that you can, and it's a very frequent process. Maybe you are doing a daily, or if you can think about uh, previous in process, you have to wait for your DevOps team to deploy it. So there is not that case. You have automated your script. It goes from integration to production, and without any producing any bugs in it. If there are any bugs, it will be caught in early phases as well.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, that's the process that we follow in CI/CD. Now I think Zain should uh, take over on CI.
Okay, so I'd like just to dive into why we need a CI in first place. I mean, when we talk about these architectures that we have in software, it actually we what we do as developers is we enforce practices in our code base. So we have, for example, you have to define all the types for your components. Let's suppose you are talking about React applications, or you have Lint in place. You have some other practices in place that allows you to keep your architecture intact. And whenever someone is checking out your repository and is pushing or committing some sort of a code into that repository, you have to enforce some sort of checks that that code base has to follow in first place. So CI starts from the very beginning. I mean, whenever you do that git add dot and then you start writing git commit, it's the place where your architecture actually kicks in. Or I should term it as your enforcement of architecture kicks in. You have to ensure that whenever a developer is committing something, that code base actually follows the standards that you have defined for your app or your structure. So that's where that CI part is kicking in. And on front end side, when you talk about scalability, we have two sorts of scalability in place. Now, the first scalability is we have to support number of different devices that users have today. We have to support number of different interfaces that users have. We have mobile apps running on different operating systems. We have web apps running in different browsers and other interfaces. The other scalability that's much more important in front end or in any other area of software development is scalability in terms of number of developers. You have to ensure that your app's structure and architecture remains intact, and the speed of adding new feature is still the very much high as it was at the start of the project when number of different developers join in your team. So you have to make sure that whenever your team has tens of developers or your product has number of different small teams working together to deliver a feature, you have to ensure that all of these are following those standards that you have set in first place at the start of your project or you have developed as you move along. The CI there is important if you are working on a scalable app. You cannot achieve that manually. You cannot have that, let's just imagine one thing that irritates me most is having a spelling mistake inside of your code base. I mean, that triggers that OCD in your mind. I cannot look into anything else. Just correct that spelling first. And you cannot have that while you are reviewing your pull request. You cannot have that mentions every time. See, hey buddy, you just missed a spelling here. Please correct it. Or you forgot to import this module here before using it. Or might be anything. Or you just forgot that semicolon thing if you're in JavaScript. Yeah. So I mean, CI is something that is necessity today, especially for the applications that are being worked with number of different developers.
And one mantra we've had on this show for a long time is it's far easier for a robot to yell at a developer than other developers to yell at other developers, because nobody, and I've been this person before, nobody wants to be the person that has to track down people and say like, hey, Zain, you know, we have a standard that we include semicolons at the end of our JavaScript, and these last 2 commits, you haven't done it. So we need you to go through and do it. Like, it's manual. It leads to conflicts. It's far better if you have a bot that comes through and just automates it, because in the front end world nowadays, it's amazing how much you actually can automate. Like, that's come a long ways as well. I'm always amazed at what these tools, like they can not only flag these things, like they can automatically fix them for you at this point. So
and that's really beautiful. I mean, it has allowed us to move so fast that we could, I mean, going back 5 years or 4 years, we would have not imagined going with the pace that we have today. I mean, the amount of code that we are shipping every day using these small tools in place. I mean, especially avoiding number of big bugs. We always create bugs. That's something that we will be doing always. But yeah, we have things in place that allow us to avoid those, basic bugs that could cause disasters in future. So yeah, CI is there, and not to mention we have number of different tools just to implement the CI thing. We love to create things, and we have created so many things just to ensure that we have a good CI, a cool way to develop CI into your applications. So we had, I don't know if any of you have used pre-commit before. It was a library that was used. It is still in place. People use it. It's a great library. There are also people who built that, and they did that. They built a pre-commit thing, and you could define that what steps you have to follow every time any of your developer commits. So whenever you type git commit, it runs those steps on your stage files, and and if any of that step fails, it mentions the developer, okay, you cannot commit this. Just go there, fix it, come back, and then commit. So there's a popular tool today. It's called Husky, and Husky is widely used. I mean, if you go to npm downloads, you'll find out that it just booms out of charts. So Husky is a great tool. It's a wonderful library to have in your applications, be it front-end applications, be it back-end applications. So it makes the management of Git hooks so easy for developers. So yeah, please. PJ.
No, I was going to say that back in the day, I've written some pre-commit Git hooks manually, and I remember it not being fun. I don't remember any of the specifics. You're correct. I just remember the trauma involved, because I believe
and we found Husky, and it was like, yes.
Finally.
Because I believe it's like it's basically like bash scripting when you write a commit hook, as far as I recall, or something, or some like weird version of it. Right. So it's powerful, right? Like you can do a lot of cool things, but it's unapproachable. So I have not tried Husky yet. So I'm going to toss a link in the chat.
Yeah, it is something to check into, because it's pretty amazing. We're using it on a mono repo with 20 something front end projects in it.
Wow.
And just to run lint on the affected or on your staged files, and a couple other things I think that are in there that we wanted to do. Some code formatting based on our rules that teams have agreed to, and it made it very easy to do multiple things as pre-commit hooks and stack them one after another before it allows you to actually, the commit to go through.
Okay. So we were using Husky for past 3 years, I guess, past 2 years at least. Before that, we were using pre-commit. And recently we found out that there is an alternative, that's left hook. I mean, that library is built with Golang in itself. So the problem with Husky was that you have to execute all of your tasks inside a job in a piped way. So let's take an example. You have a type check, then you have a lint check, then you have style lints, then you have code spell checker, and then might be you have markdown link checking or whatever you have. You're gonna have a number of things.
Right.
So what Husky did was Husky used to execute all of them serially. So if your type check fails, it's not going to go into lint, or your lint fails, it's not going to go inside your style lint, and so on. What left hook did was, all of these tasks, especially this type checking, lint, style lint, code spell checking, and the markdown link checking, all of these are actually independent tasks in themselves, right? You can have stylelint on your CSS files, while you can have your ESLint work on your JavaScript files. And then you have your code spell checking running across all of your stage files. Okay? So what LeftHook did was they allowed you to execute all of these steps parallelly. You are doing it right away, and those pre-commit hooks that used to take 2 minutes, 3 minutes at times, if you have a big commit, a number of tasks are, you have huge number of tasks, it used to take a lot of time. And that actually at times frustrated developer. I mean, I just wrote that git commit and you are taking those 3 minutes of my time.
Yep.
Why the hell? Okay. So what LeftHook did was they replaced that JavaScript implementation and they went for Golang. And they did it using Golang, so you can execute all of these tasks in parallel. Besides that, they also allowed that type execution. If you are a backend developer and you have that DB scripting where you create database, then you see migrated, then you seed it, and then you start your E2E testing before your commit goes in or your push goes in. So they did this parallel execution, all of these tasks. I mean, it's a wonderful tool. It's really handy tool. It's less, less of a burden on your node modules directly. It doesn't bloat up your node modules. It's a binary, and its NPM package is just a wrapper around that binary. And I really appreciate the team that's working on LeftHook. You guys are doing amazing things, just like many other open source maintainers. So we are using LeftHook right now, and let me just show you here quickly. Have this, yeah. So
yeah, while you're bringing that up, it is interesting. And I had not heard of LeftHook before either. I dropped it in the comments in chat if you want to check it out. And I'll say, if nothing else, they have an amazing logo as well. It's like a boxing glove coming in.
Yeah.
So props to them for that, if nothing else. And I'll drop your screen up here. There we go. If you could bump your font size up like 1 or 2 notches, that would be great.
Okay. That is it good now?
Yeah, that should perfect right there.
Okay.
Or you can go down 1 notch.
Okay. So we have this simple create React app in place, right? So I've created a simple test branch here, and we have everything in place. So this is just a simple create React app. That's nothing in there, just a bit of simple now. And let me just add something here. I mean, React Witness Day. This is awesome, right? And I just did this, and what I did was spell mistake here, right? So my favorite bug to catch. And there I am in my terminal, and I just did git add dot, and I did git commit, and there it is. So the LeftHook kicks in, and it starts running all these executions, and there you go. It says I did type check, and it was correct. I did lint check, and it was correct. I did style lints, and it was correct. And then you had that spelling mistake. And
man,
mentions that, yeah, there it is, your spelling mistake.
Man, I appreciate the commitment to the theme with the boxing glove in there. Like that, those are the sort of details I'm here for.
Okay, so that's left hooks in action, and just quickly go through the files that we write, and there it is, your pre-commit complete execution. So you have that pre-commit job defined here, where you have parallel equals to true. That mentions that you have to do all of this in parallel, and it's executing this type check, and you can select the files that you want to execute or type checking on. And then you have lint, that's ESLint, simple. And you have your style lint in place, and then you have your spelling checks. One thing to mention here, see this, your type check is happening across your project, while your lint is only executing on your stage files, right? So left hook allows you to pick those files only that are stage right now. I still remember using Husky, you have to use another package that it's lint staged, right? Or it's something like that. So you have to get that package in that allows you to capture all those stage files, and then you can execute all this task on the stage files. And I really like the file actually file collection, or what you could file filtering of left hooks, and they just allow you to handle all this stuff in the simple script, and you can do all this beautiful stuff here. Also, you can add these commit message. Yeah, another thing. So I just remove from pre-commit. There's another thing that I like about is when you are working on a large-scale project, one thing that I feel is quite important is to sync up how your commits look like. And when you are looking at your Git history, you have to ensure that it looks readable. You cannot have different sort of nomenclatures in there. Someone is writing in one way and someone is writing another way, and then also those spelling mistakes in there. You just cannot, you cannot do that, right? So there's an awesome library that's commit lint that allows you to ensure and enforce the way your commit message should look like. So that allows you to keep all of your commit history more readable. And we also had this commit message in place that executes in parallel. So let me just go back to the thing I was pushing. Yeah, just do that again, right? So I just added these and I did git commit. It will be done. It's
after this,
all clear. And there it is. You have to edit your commit file now. And I did this blah 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 and this, right? So there you go. Exiting Vim. Always a shit. Okay, so you see this whenever you are using Vim. That's what you have.
Yeah, and once this runs too, you're gonna have to show me the config file, because I'm curious how it's enforcing these commit messages.
Okay, so I just put up here. I just did this chore or spelling mistakes. Let's do that spelling mistake first. Okay, so I did this and I just tried to commit and started running commit message check, and it's rejected. So I don't know how the hell. Okay, so spell check might be broke. Won't broke. Don't remember. Am I? Okay, so it actually broke with lint commit message. I don't know why the hell spell check didn't run. Well, so demo god kicks in and you just cannot do anything, right? So the commit message said that you need to have that subject first, and then you have to write what you did. And there I am. I just wrote this feature, add some description, right?
Yeah, and I wonder too for the spell check, I wonder if it thinks, because sometimes a lot of spell checkers, if they see like numbers in there, they'll think it's like some acronym or something, and not.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's like it thinks that's like some sort of reserved
keyword,
something or another. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be the case. So I just did add some description, and there it is. It starts. It again executes all of these files file checks of pre-commit, and then it will move towards commit lint and commit messaging check. So I did this commit message, it's all set. I have this awesome commit here coming up, right? So, and then also they have another feature that we are not demoing today, but yeah, you can definitely check that out. It's actually pre-push. So whenever you will execute that git push, it will execute the code block that you have defined. Okay, there it is. So it will execute the code base the code block that's defined here. You can run your test here. Nobody wants to run every test every time on the commits. We do commits quite frequent. And also you can have those security checks in place. There's a fancy field coming up. I mean, it's a great field, that DevSecOps, that handles all this security stuff related to your application. You know, you are not allowed to add any package that has reported vulnerabilities. And also you can add that, you know, removing your secrets from the code base and that sort of stuff in there. And just you can, you know, execute all of this here in pre-push, and that will be executed once you do that git push stuff. So yeah.
All right, so I have a few different questions. So first of all, I want to see the commit lint config file, because was that the name of the tool, commit lint?
Yeah, it is. So I haven't done any fancy thing. They have a lot of configurations defined in place, right? So if you go out to this commit lint you know, page, they have a lot of predefined configurations in place, right?
And I enforce that people include like an emoji prefix for my commits. These are the
that would be super awesome. I mean, yeah.
I'm asking the real questions here.
So that is where you would get some pushback from me. I hate emojis.
See, in this context, like I like the skimmability. Like if I'm seeing a big list of commits, to like have certain ones jump out to me as a clear thing. So, but I can agree to disagree here.
I'm old school. I started in like a terminal window, and that's it.
On a more technical level, so left hook is written with Go. Yeah. And I'm pretty naive with Go. Is there anything I have to be worried about? Because presumably my like any CI server I'd have would also need to run this. Is Go like pretty compatible? Was there any like concerns with these things running on a server somewhere? Is it pretty straightforward?
No, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, having it written in Golang and shipping it as a binary, that gives them a lot of edge. So, you know, they just opted this technology because it is super awesome. And that gives you leverage above many other things. And they targeted initially the Ruby developers and the Node developers. So for anyone working with Ruby on the back end and Node on the back end, or have any other Node application in place, a bit of self-promotion here. I wrote down a blog. If you are a React developer, you can find that out. I guess you can post it here in show notes.
Yeah, if you drop a link, I'll pass it along.
Just give me a second. There it is.
Yeah, so basically by shipping it as a binary, you don't have to worry about what version of Go might or might not be installed on each environment. That you just get the binary has everything you need in it.
That was getting at some of my other concerns too, because I've had things that relied on server side version numbers, and that has given me nightmares,
especially
as well.
In a shared CI environment where you got multiple teams. Like what we have is we have a central DevOps group that manages the Jenkins environment, and so there's no way we'd be able to say, oh, we need a node that has Go 1.4.3 or whatever. I'm making a number up, but because they'd be like, yeah, whatever. This is our standard. Get on this one.
Well, so related question: the parallelization that it does, is that going to depend at all? Like, because what I'm wondering is, so lots of times in the past, the slowness has been like, I've got some CI server in the cloud that's like running with hamsters or something, because it'll take like 10 minutes to build things. So I'm wondering if that like parallelization that it does, like splitting tasks, when I deploy this to the cloud, is it gonna like auto magically know how to do that? Is it gonna depend on what it is that's running it? Like, because I don't know, parallelization has always been fraught with me in the past. So I that gives me a little bit of concern, but is it pretty seamless? You haven't had any issues with it?
Yeah, it's very seamless. I mean, it's super awesome.
Okay.
Just give it a try once, and then you will have that flavor, and you are not going anywhere. You are not going back it anytime soon.
Yeah.
And one thing that Dan mentioned, they have a number of mono repos into a single project, single repository. The best part of left hook, you know, when you are working with Husky, you have to define those Husky hooks in every project, right? And one thing that's good with left hook is it allows you to extend the configurations. So let's suppose you have that code spell checker in place for every other project, or you have that style lint in place for all of your front-end applications. So what you do is you define a single configuration for your front-end projects, and then those front-end projects, every other front-end project, just extends the organization-wide left hook file. And if they want to extend, let's suppose they want to add one or two new Git pre-commits, one or two in pre-push and one in commit message or whatever it is, they can do it right away from their own file. Right? So that's something that is very, very useful for teams that are working on really large scale projects. And you know, they have a number of different mono repos in place, and you can just, you know, manage all the left hooks. Your Git hooks are managed from single place. But that keeps it, makes it super reliable feature.
Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting stuff. It's also interesting. This isn't a question so much as a comment, but to see a lot of the front end infrastructure world move towards things like Go, because we've also seen a lot of like build tools start to experiment with that. And it's just interesting to see, because I mean, it makes total sense, right? Like the appeal for the longest time is like, well, it's written in JavaScript, so it appeals to the JavaScript community. But like JavaScript is inherently a scripting language, and there's going to be faster ways of doing it. And as these workflows become more complicated, and these seconds and minutes that these processes can take to run, like that productivity is starting to become important enough that people are getting closer to the metal.
Well, and Go is designed from the ground up to be like fast, number one, but is designed with concurrency as like a first class citizen. It's not an afterthought, kind of like, well, you know, people trying to make Node and JavaScript be concurrent when it's not really supposed to be, right? So you get some pretty big benefits right away just for the basis of the language. You know, for a long time, like you said, everything, hey, we can do this in Node. Hey, we can do this in Node. Nobody ever asked, should we do this in Node?
Yeah, we go into our comfort zones very soon. I mean, as developers, we are very, you know, we just say this, we didn't have consensus on emojis. See? And then
but,
we don't consensus on other things.
Well, I think this gets into like a scale question too, because if it's for my personal blog, then yeah, I want it written in Node because it's JavaScript and that's what I know, and who cares, right? But
you're the one guy maintaining it, right?
Exactly. But at scale, like all these things start to matter so much more, because like saving, like if my blog takes 20 seconds longer to build because it's on JavaScript, who cares? But if I'm on a big organization and all of a sudden that becomes minutes, and that becomes minutes for teams of hundreds of people, then all of a sudden this math becomes a little bit something more that you might want to question.
It's the hockey stick, right? The amount of money spent waiting on stuff goes exponentially.
Yeah. So that's how good. So let me just share my screen again. I just did this super awesome thing with. There it is. So I just created this PR with checks and the commit we made, and we have defined some GitHub action here, right? So there it is. It has executed all that pre-commit as a pre-merge tasks, and it says that your code base is good to go in the main branch. and there you have that actual enforcement of your architecture and actual enforcement of the standards or code practices that you want your teams to follow. And we have this all checks passed, and now this pull request can be merged. And if it would have failed, you wouldn't have find this awesome green button here.
So wait a second. How did you do this? I think I missed a step.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is the code that we've been looking at, right? But how did you get the fancy UI here to get in place?
Okay. So I just created this small YAML file in GitHub Actions. We can always have this GitHub Actions demo sometime in near future where we can discuss how to do all this fancy CI stuff with GitHub Actions or GitLab CI or any other. So not to mention, we'll be back very soon just to discuss this GitHub Actions and the fancy green button that you saw there. So it's a GitHub action file. It's a simple file right now. It just uses this Ubuntu latest VM, checks out your code, and set up Node.js, then installs Node modules, then runs a pre-merge left hook task and your tests. And if all of this passes, it allows you to actually merge your pull request down.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's interesting though, that it's pretty powerful that you can bake the exact same thing that you're doing locally.
Yeah.
And have it. So if some developer happens to figure out a way around your pre-commit hook, he or she is still going to get that test run on their PR before they can merge it.
And in fact, that's pretty simple. You can just add -n after your git commit command, and everything goes
skip right over it. Yeah. So if you have an enterprising individual that doesn't want to wait on this to happen, you can still enforce this stuff at the server level.
And the larger the organization, the higher the chance you find that
we'll have more than one of them. Yeah. I have been that person in the past. So.
Everybody has done that.
Yeah, right.
We all have that guilty thing in our lives that we did that -n.
But as somebody in my position as an engineering manager, with a bunch of different people and a bunch of different teams working, sometimes we've had a situation where we've asked our engineers, all right, go ahead and skip the pre-commit hook for right now, just to get it on the server, to be able to push it so that other people can grab it and look at it. And before we ever get to a pull request. So that is important. We joke about bypassing these things, but sometimes the use cases, are there where we do need to bypass it locally on the engineer's machine so they can get it to a point where somebody else can get it and help with something.
Yeah, that's very right. I mean, you need that at times, especially when you are working in a high-paced form, your production is down, you have that major bug in there, and you have to fix this right away, and you need help from someone.
We don't have that in my organization, but
Well, you don't have to get your production down or something else.
Right. We don't have this production outage things you speak of. But yes, it is important. No matter, there's several different use cases, like you say, that is important to be able to do that. But it's really nice when you put the pull request in that actually goes ahead and runs again.
Okay, so just to carry on with the thing that you mentioned, never get that production out. You can have a good CD in place just to keep your production always up and running. And just a quick turnaround here, a little bit about the CD before we end this thing. There are a number of different solutions available today, and we have a big companies coming up with the solutions for front-end developers to make CD easier and more accessible for them. Versal is one of them. You can check out Netlify, and they have amazing CD experience. You can check out Gatsby Cloud. They are amazing cloud. They have amazing infrastructure in place. They have amazing CD in place. You can check out Heroku. They are also doing this. I guess AWS might have something. DO has their CD stuff. And Azure might have. I have no idea about Azure. I never used it. So
and then there's the typical names that you like. We're running on our own Jenkins infrastructure for our CI and CD, right? So you don't have to necessarily deploy with these tools if you're in an organization that already has this stuff in house. The same principles can be applied there.
Yeah, but a lot of small companies, they don't have leverage to have that separate
Absolutely.
DevOps team. Yeah. So for such cases, Vercel or Netlify or GetSpeed Cloud or these sort of tools, they become really handy. And we just deployed our app that we were developing into or using Vercel. I mean, we just imported this project into Vercel. It's super awesome. It's super easy. You can import your projects right away, and then you can, whenever you push to any of your branch, it actually triggers that deployment. So since it is a pull request in my main branch, it has triggered deployment with Vercel, and you have that amazing your branch name, the project's name, you have it ready right away, and it has that up and running. So if you merge it, it will start deploying it to production. Or if you want to promote this build to production, you can do it right away from here. So that allows you to keep that stuff intact. And if I merge and somehow during this process of merge and the build on main branch fails, it will keep using the previous deployment that was production, and this won't impact your production. So you can be just like Dan's team, whose production never goes out. So yeah, Dan, see, many people can do that.
I want to make a note before we wrap up. The conversation earlier, we were talking about maybe not merging for weeks on end and only doing a periodic deploy. We were in a situation where we did a deploy every 2 weeks. In the middle of a sprint, we deployed everything that had been, but we were deploying 14 different front end apps all at once. So that coordination was crazy. We had continuous integration doing testing and things like that, but we didn't deploy because we had a manual QA step. We went from that process to a full continuous deployment methodology or process. And so we went from one production deployment every 2 weeks. Now we're averaging 5 production deployments a day.
Wow.
And the engineering teams absolutely love it. Again, we've got multiple teams working in this monorepo. They love it because they can now control when they can push things. So speaking to the speed of iteration and developer friction, which is part of what my job is these days, is to remove friction that are keeping developers from being productive. That has been massive for us. And these kinds of things that you're talking about fit right into that, helping to A, make you more confident in what you're putting out there, but B, being able to deploy and release faster and more confidently, rather than having to make people wait before they can get their code out to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
I have been in those shoes. It manifests itself in ways like, oh, I have this bug fix, and then you get in this argument. Well, is this important enough to make this 2-week cycle? Because then it's going to have to wait 2 weeks. Yeah. And you have like this meeting and email about it, and it's like, if that was just automated, where I could just have the power to make those decisions arbitrarily, it's just, that's the sort of friction you're talking about.
There was some tooling that we had. There was some tooling that we had put in place to help with that. Like all of our engineers, we practice feature flag driven development, where everything is behind a feature flag that we can turn on and off independent of the deploy. So that facilitated us being able, because we deploy to all environments every time. Dev through production all gets deployed at the same time. And we do that multiple times a day, and the engineering teams absolutely love it.
Yeah, we always love to get our code into production.
Right. Yeah, less process, right? Just let me commit it and let it do its thing.
Yeah, and it didn't just break everything.
Yep.
We just love that.
Well, Zain, we got a few minutes left here. Is there anything else we want to cover here before we wrap up?
I guess if we'll start, it will be a big thing next up. So again, we can always come back and discuss all the awesome tools that we have in form of GitHub Actions and GitLab CI that allow you to develop your own solutions using them. You can leverage a lot of open source plugins around them, and how they can allow you to pace your workflows, just make them better. And that's all, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. I want to give a minute to if chat has any questions about anything we see you've seen here today. If you have any CI/CD, if you've tried it yourself, if you've been frustrated, let's give chat like 1 or 2 minutes here before we wrap up to see if any questions come up. But this has been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. I didn't know a lot of these tools existed. So my CI/CD strategy is usually to make other people do that for me, and I mean, like, it's a decent strategy when it works, but I've discovered now, being at a smaller company, sometimes you don't have that person.
There's nobody to delegate it to.
There's
right?
nobody to delegate it to, and it's like, oh crap! Now what do I do? Because I've been working on a project where I have some tests, so I was a good citizen and wrote some tests, but now I have nothing to like ensure these tests actually run, right? So and it's like, oh man, like now you've given me some ideas though, so I appreciate it.
Thanks. It's awesome.
Well, cool. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. So Zain, you'll actually be on next week though. So if anybody's watching this, and you can come back for round 2 next week. But man, we've appreciated it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming as well. Thanks everybody for showing up. This has been a lot of fun. Just as one last reminder, React Wednesdays, we do this every week, same time slots. So stop by. It's fun live. You can ask questions and such, or if not, we post them on YouTube. So thanks everybody again. Until next week. See y'all.
See y'all.
Yeah.